The Brewers' pitching staff was a revolving door of sorts in 2024. They used a tied for franchise high 17 starting pitchers, and Freddie Peralta was the only one who went wire to wire, started opening day, and then made it all the way through the regular season as a starter, made a postseason start, and even a postseason relief appearance, although that does not factor in to our award voting. Freddie Peralta was one of our pitchers of the year. We actually had a tie with Tobias Myers being the other one. So these are the two pitchers that were most effective, most valuable for the Brewers, according to our writers here at Brewer Fanatic. Tobias Myers, his story has been widely covered. 1-15 in AAA a couple of years ago after being traded for top prospect Junior Caminero. But then the Brewers decided to take a chance on him, signed him to a 2-year minor league deal. Last year, he was a little bit better when they sent him down to AA Biloxi, made a late season appearance in AAA, pitched well in AAA to start this year, and after a few starts, they decided to call him up. And he wound up making 27 appearances and 25 starts in the big leagues, 138 innings, an even 3.0 ERA. His ERA plus of 140 was best among all starters for the Brewers this year. 3.91 fielding independent pitching, 1.17 whip. There are a lot of numbers that illustrate how good Tobias Myers was, and especially considering that he really came out of nowhere and was not expected to be a great starter. He even threw 5 shutout innings in his postseason debut. He's got good stuff all around. His changeup particularly was good this year, as well as his breaking ball. And his fastball, while not being particularly hard, still is good, good enough to get hitters out. Freddie Peralta, on the other hand, is a little bit of the opposite, where his season was maybe not a disappointment, but not particularly a breakout. In fact, it may have even been his worst season as a starter, at least since 2021, when he burst onto the scene as a starter with a sub-3 ERA. This year, he had 173 2/3 innings with a 3.68 ERA. Now, that innings total, it is notable because he led the team in innings. As I mentioned before, he showed up every 5 days, every 6 days, and started, which he's the only guy who can say that he did that. So him taking the ball every day, that matters because the Brewers needed innings, and nobody else was able to do that. And he still was a pretty effective starter. I mean, he had a 3.68 ERA, struck out more than a batter an inning, but he wasn't great in the postseason. I think a lot of people, including myself, were expecting him to take a step forward this year, took a step backwards, maybe slightly. Strikeout percentage dropped, his walk rate increased, his expected numbers based on the quality of contact from hitters, those were all numbers that were worse this year than they have been over the previous 3. So Freddie Peralta was still a pretty good starter for the Brewers, but he sort of had the opposite trajectory of Myers, where Myers was the breakout guy going up, and Freddie was sort of the guy that they converged, and Freddie was up here and maybe not quite the guy that we hoped he would be in 2024, although I do want to give him credit because he still was a pretty good starter for the Brewers. So again, Tobias Myers and Freddie Peralta tying for our Brewer Fanatic Pitcher of the Year. Trevor McGill finished third in voting, reliever, but did not have the same volume as either of these two starters did.